So, as an introduction for this, my name is Bridget Brave. I will be reading from my novella, which is coming out on June 1st. It is part of an anthology of cryptid. It's called Confirmed Sightings, a Cryptid Triple Feature. So they are each movie themed. I wrote the Hallmark love story. And then there's also a police procedural and a sci-fi story in it. The sci-fi story is by P.L. McMillan, and the police procedural is by Ryan Marie Kettner. Introduction by Laurel Hightower. So, you know, it's got something for everyone in there. And my story is about my local cryptid, which is called the Piasaw bird. And if you haven't heard of that, welcome to the club. It's not a very common cryptid. I actually have this great pinup of him on my shirt right now. As you can see, he's lost his little ice cream cone and he's so sad about it. So yeah, I've been obsessed with the Piasaw bird since I was a child, so I was very excited to be able to write a little romance about him. And what I'll be reading for you today is the introduction, the Q&A from her blog, and then a Yelp review she wrote. Oh, and I should probably tell you the name of the novella is A Piasaw for Christmas. A note to my readers from Casey Elizabeth Cooley. There's something you have to understand about me if you want to know the real Casey Cooley. I am not like the other girls. I don't mean this in an edgy, terminally online way. I'm just being very honest about the real situation I'm in. There's things about me that are dark. Things about me no one knows, not even my best friend, who is currently Jana McRenna, and I swear I tell her just about everything. I currently live in the same small town I was born in, right where hitting the water means Illinois stops and Missouri begins. There's 100 small towns just like mine, still trying to lure in tourists with steamboats, tales of Mark Twain, promises of haunted hotels, and my hometown isn't any different. Just smaller and in an area where the waters of the Mississippi and the Missouri start to mix into a muddy froth. It's a place they call the River Bend. Isn't that name just fucking romantic? I mean, I say it out loud, the River Bend, and an image is evoked. Tiny brick storefronts, adorable shuttered houses, sleepy riverside restaurants where the locals will fry you up a catfish for cheap and a big fish story for free. I'll tell you that image is not entirely incorrect. My area, especially the little pocket my parents settled down in, is picturesque as fuck. It is like a Hallmark movie, but real. There's a post office that actually has a legit cafe that serves pie and cute little coffees and salads and everything. You can even have brunch there and get totally wasted on bottomless mimosas. We even have a local legendary monster born from stories about a cliff painting discovered by the first white explorers in the area. We call it the Piasaw bird, and even though we're not entirely sure who painted it or when, it's become the unofficial mascot of my sleepy little town. I expected to be bored when I moved back, but it turns out this place is actually better than I remember, and I will admit that my memories border on completely nostalgic when I'm asked to talk about home. When I decided to leave my job as a busy marketing assistant in New York and move back to my hometown, I felt like this was a new era for me. I would get back to my roots, find myself again, learn to live my best life, maybe finally start that influencer gig with a makeup and lifestyle blog, maybe rekindle with an old flame if he's still around. I guess I always thought I'd end up like a Hallmark movie too. I'm sure my parents had also hoped for that. But I had to go and disappoint them. You see, I recently got into a relationship with, well, he's a minor deity from a civilization so ancient that I'm apparently incapable of saying their name without going insane. So yeah, that happened. I told you, I'm not like the other girls. I'm in love with the Piasaw bird. This next entry is called On Love's Golden Wings, Casey Loves Piasaw, which is the title of the blog. Back when I started Face the Day with Casey, I simply wanted to share my sparkle with the world. I was coming off a 5-year post-grad stint in New York with little to show for it. I'd graduated from my college business program full of hopes and promises, and I thought that the big city would hold all the answers, would provide me with a lifetime full of happiness. Instead, I ended up spending the entirety of my fancy new salary on rent and food. I hardly ever got to enjoy the nightlife I'd been promised. That city may never sleep, but that was nearly all I had time for after an hour-and-a-half train ride, fighting my way up 54th, and then enduring my 6th-flight climb to my studio apartment full of roaches and not much else. Worse yet, the love I was absolutely yearning for was nowhere to be found. Divey bars and dating apps didn't bring me any closer to Prince Charming. I was lucky if I didn't worry I was going to get stabbed 15 seconds after meeting a guy. There's some real sleazebags out there. And even if they aren't totally creepy, they barely know how to treat a girl. I was feeling doomed. I was actually even starting to regret my decision to dump my high school sweetheart, even after he stuck with me all through those 4 long years of undergrad. I just always believed I'd find the one, and when I did, I'd know, you know? I thought there would be sparks and music and magic, and we'd fall into each other's arms and promise to never be apart again. Robbie Cartwright, while ruggedly handsome in a very corn-fed Midwestern way, was just never my fate. Sure, he was the hottest guy in high school, and he made my prom photos pop, but I couldn't end up with him. He seemed too trite and overdone, too comfortable to end up with my high school boyfriend, especially after all those years dreaming of a new life. I thought I was destined for a far greater romance, something for the storybooks. Little did I know I'd find it in my hometown, with someone I'd actually known of my entire life, and certainly something out of storybooks. In fact, there's a book on my childhood bookshelf all about him. I mean, the romance wasn't how I hoped or where I planned, but it's perfect. And of course, I was nervous about bringing my unconventional love life out into the open. When I first considered moving away from makeup tutorials and scarf tying guides, I worried I would lose the few followers I'd already built. I never could have dreamed that my little romance would cause such a stir, or that posting about it would bring in such a huge audience. But here we are. So thank you so much for the likes, the subscriptions, and the sweet comments. Additionally, thank you to everyone who submitted questions for my Q&A. As promised, here's Casey Loves Pie Sauce first ever Q&A. Question 1 is from Stacy in Sarasota, Florida. How did you even meet an ancient deity in a town of less than 800 people? And I'll tell you, I get asked this all the time. I've been joking that I should really put up an FAQ with that being the only question. The fact is that I thought I was helping. I was doing my court-ordered community service for that tiny traffic ticket I got on St. Patrick's Day, and I know that there's been a lot of discussion about that. I want to tell you the events of that evening were greatly exaggerated. I wasn't actually naked, for one. So anyway, I was pressure cleaning the park signs at Three Ridges Bluff, and I noticed there was a ton of paint on the front of the bluff. I turned the sprayer toward it, started blasting, and the cop who was supervising yelled, "Hey, stop that." Apparently it was some rare piece of cliff that had the original version of the larger Piasaw bird painting. And it was a site of historical significance, and it was ultra protected. And it kind of turns out it was protected. It was a literal magical prison. I know, I was also in shock to find that out. Removing it before it faded away naturally over time freed him from his captivity before his sentence was served and his eternal soul could be collected, so who knew, right? They were always telling us that huge rock painting was something one of the local tribes in this area painted of a huge monster of legend, but it turns out that some white guy just made that shit up in the early 1900s. Don't misread, the painting concept was very real, but we have no idea what the painting was, what it was supposed to represent, who painted it, and that person wasn't around any longer to explain it. So we just kept copying it and selling it on cheap t-shirts and finally putting a more colorful version in a more tourist-friendly location. So I stopped spraying and there's this rumble and a loud crack and I'm thinking, holy shit, it's an earthquake, we're all doomed. But instead of the earth splitting open, there was a dazzling beam of electric hot light and I got knocked 15 feet back straight onto my ass. And I destroyed my favorite cutoffs in the process. And then this voice starts thundering, I realized I was the only one that could hear it. And I can't understand a single thing it's saying because it's speaking in some guttural language with way too many ooh sounds and sh sounds. And then I just knew. It's hard to explain, but it's like I was suddenly struck with this awesome weight of knowing that I've somehow released a supernatural, all-powerful being that was now bound to me forever. Talk about a sign, right guys? So there I am, feeling like a total asshole, having just freed a literal ancient god, and I mean, it was a rough go at first. Piasaw did kill that cop, and he really roughed up some of the other community service prisoner dudes while trying to free them from their leg irons. To be fair, they didn't quite understand they were being freed. I mean, this is a preternatural being from a time and place we cannot fathom, and Piasaw doesn't exactly speak English. Question 2 is from Megan, no city mentioned. Was it love at first sight? I mean, no. I won't lie, I peed my pants. I literally peed my pants. I fully vacated my bladder. I was fucking terrified. The moment my vision cleared, I saw Piasaw in the flesh, so to speak. He doesn't exactly have flesh. I just froze. I thought he was going to eat me, which I now admit was a dangerous preconception I had based on a lie told by a colonizer who was just trying to turn a profit of a history that wasn't his to tell at all. It's pretty fucked up how we just decide that all indigenous practices automatically involve human sacrifice, right? That's why I started this blog. I wanted to get the real story out there and help people across the nation recognize the very implicit racism that this folklore is based on. So stop leaving comments telling me this is woke bullshit and that I'm being manipulated into thinking Payasaw is a literal benevolent being who was wrongfully imprisoned by a mystic priest as part of an arcane ritual and a religious ceremony from a long-lost civilization we no longer have a word for. You don't even fucking know Payasaw, okay? Question 3 is from Mashlin in Longview. So how do you two hang out? Isn't he, like, gigantic? I'll tell you this is a common misconception because of the size of the cave painting. You've seen this at various tourist attractions. When they decided to repaint the Payasaw further upriver, they didn't copy the original as well as they thought. In fact, they missed the inscription at the bottom completely. Mainly because it's not in a language we can perceive or read. And actually, it says actual size. Isn't that hilarious? I laughed so hard when he told me that. P.S. I'm actually taller than him when I'm in heels. Question 4 is from Bryce in Minneapolis. How do you two communicate? Oh, that took some work. Payasaw not only spoke a collection of languages I've never heard of, but his primary method of communication is to directly place his thoughts inside my head. So if you can kind of imagine 1,000 voices speaking languages you can't comprehend all at once inside your brain, I just had a constant headache until we learned better methods, although I do still get regular nosebleeds. And after I'd overcome my initial panic response and settled down, I realized he was really trying to talk to me, just to talk to me. I felt my heart warm. I started slow the way you would with a child, pointing at various things and repeating the word until I saw that first glimmer of recognition spark in his eyes. Soon he was placing those same words back into my head as he lifted each item. Rock, twig, leaf, grass, can, paper. The first time he understood and said my name, it was like the blood was singing in my veins. I couldn't wait for him to say it again. Now we have full conversations, and I'm even starting to pick up some of his language. Question 5 was submitted anonymously because of course it was. Can you even have sex with that? I keep telling you, 1, this is a very personal and rude question, and the phrasing is even more insulting. First of all, Payasaw is from an ancient race of celestial beings that has evolved beyond the need of a binary gender. There are actually 27 distinct universal genders anyway, if you would know that. Please stop calling Payasaw a that. While he is from a realm beyond gender, Payasaw prefers he, him. But you should know that I have 0 complaints about the physical aspects of our relationship. I have never been so fulfilled. Question 6 is from J.C. Lynn in Memphis, Tennessee. Where is this relationship going? And I keep telling you, I don't know. We're taking things slow. I just started that new job at the hospital, and Payasaw is adjusting to a world he no longer recognizes nor understands. So we just kind of want to keep it casual. Question 7 is from Brianna in St. Louis. What do your parents think? Oh my gosh, they really want to meet him. But I am not ready for that. I worry they'll just ask him questions about what happened with the people who were here before us, and he is so tired of that. We stopped double dating entirely because of it. Every question just leads to a dozen more, and it's always, where did they go? And then how did you make an entire civilization disappear? And did you actually kill them? Or what do you mean by an endless river of suffering blood that awaits us all? I just tell them that's in the past, and it should stay in the past. He wants people to be curious about who he is now. Question 8 is from Mike in Tempe. If you say the Payasaw bird thing is made up, why do you refer to him as that? And I recognize that the name given to the creature painted on the rock is problematic, but Payasaw and I had come to some sort of understanding that he needed to have a word I could use to refer to him, and I needed to both be able to speak his name aloud without flaying actual flesh off someone's arm, story I will tell later, and to sort of explain who and what he is. People know and understand Payasaw, so it works. Question 9 is from Candy in Placentia. Aren't you worried he's going to eat you? You know, this is a really hurtful question, I keep getting. Payasaw, to my knowledge, has never eaten anyone. And the police officer's death, while tragic, was self-defense. He was being shot at. The municipal authorities are still not sure how to deal with this, since he's not exactly a citizen beholden to our laws, but also not classified as any of the dangerous animals they're allowed to euthanize in case of rogue attacks. You know, I don't think Payasaw can be euthanized anyway. He's an immortal and interdimensional being. He doesn't even respond to ibuprofen. Question 10 is from Tina and Colleen. What makes him so special? This is always difficult to answer because Payasaw came to me with a lot of internalized hatred and some serious self-esteem issues. He first learned that people thought he was ugly when he saw the way he was being portrayed in that frankly rude caricature everyone wears on t-shirts and prints on drink coasters. We won't even talk about the reaction when he saw the photos of my high school mascot. It's a lot to absorb for anyone. Now imagine you're trying to do that and understand how highways and debit cards work all at the same time. Regardless of how he looks, he's really beautiful inside. He has the soul of pure poetry. He loves live music. We just started binging Friends, and he really likes Joey. And he's just so kind. I want to spend time with him even if I wasn't attracted to him. He makes me feel so special, like I'm the only thing in the entire universe that matters to him. If you could understand how much of our universe he's actually able to actively perceive at any given moment, you'd know just how special that is. I'm the only girl in existence in his eyes, and it's incredibly romantic. Feel free to leave more comments with questions or your thoughts on any of my answers. Finally, I'm going to read from the Yelp review that she left for the Rialto Bistro on August 14th, 2022. So we had a bit of an, I'll call it an experience at this dining establishment tonight. Recently, my partner Payasa and I made our relationship officially official. After a few months of dating, I think we were both ready to admit we'd fallen deeply in love. I wanted to do something special to commemorate this milestone in the story of us. So when we planned our first official date out as a committed, monogamous couple, I could think of no better location than the Rialto Bistro. I've celebrated many birthdays, my parents' anniversary, my high school graduation, and countless other occasions there. And it's a place that's always been very special to me and my family. I wanted it to be special to Payasa too. I made a reservation for Friday night, asked for a special table in one of the alcoves so we could enjoy a little bit of privacy. I even bought a new dress. I should have known something was off when we arrived. The hostess seemed terrified for some reason, and it smacked of bigotry to me. She left in tears when I asked if there was a problem. We ended up being seated by another member of the staff. From the outset, the waitstaff was standoffish and almost skittish when they approached, addressing only me when they had a question or a suggestion, and largely behaving as if they were too afraid to engage with my date. Meanwhile, I could tell from the general demeanor of the other diners that we were in for a bumpy night. We hadn't even received our complimentary breadsticks before some local prude had to come up to our table and start raging about how there's only one true God, and I can't be dating another one, and blah, 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 Jesus. It isn't like Paisa's going around saying he's the God. He's just saying that maybe there are more gods than our teeny tiny human brains can process, and they're all around us, but only visible when conditions are right. And we would be surprised just how fucking crowded this planet is with gods and other interdimensional beings if we could just get out from up our own asses for a single minute. Anyway, I asked her to leave us alone and called for the waiter to assist. I could tell Payasa was getting angry. He'd already levitated one of the wine glasses and smashed it into the wall. Imagine my surprise when the owner comes up and asks me to leave. I was so astonished I couldn't speak. Luckily, Payasa tore our table in half and banished 2 busboys to the Shadow Realm, so our thoughts on being treated like this were crystal clear. You know, I'm getting really tired of the attitudes around this place. Sure, it's fine to wear his likeness on a t-shirt or celebrate him in your iconic parade, but if you get to meet the actual being, real and in as close an approximation to flesh as we are capable of comprehending as carbon-based life forms, I would think people would be a bit more grateful, maybe even a bit impressed. Instead, it's just one dramatic meltdown after another, screaming about the end of days while blood runs from their ears. Fortunately, after our terrible experience at Rialto, we found a pub down the way that, while not quite as elegant a setting, was very warm and welcoming to us. So I'm suggesting Scooter's Pub to friends and family is an excellent alternative with a much less snooty and judgmental vibe in the future. Plus, Wednesdays are half-price wings and taps. Thank you, everybody.